As you all know, privacy, security, and AI, these are very, very difficult balls to juggle. AI is only as safe as the data that you put into it. And right now, enterprises are discovering that sensitive data, customer records, trade secrets, even regulated information is slipping into AI system in ways they never intended. And stopping these leaks isn't just about policies or awareness, it's about baking privacy into the code itself. Today, we are joined by once again Amjad Afanah, co founder and CEO of Hound Dog AI, which is announcing what they call the industry's first privacy by design code scanner for AI applications. In today's discussion, we will dig into what that means, why existing tools haven't been enough, and how enterprises can finally get a handle on shadow AI. Amzad, it's great to have you on the show.
Likewise, yeah, thank you so much for inviting me back.
It's my pleasure. Amzad, give us a snapshot of Hound Dog AI. Also talk about what problem are you solving for engineering and security teams when it comes to AI applications?
First, let me just give you a background about Hound Dog AI in general. So we're an early stage startup, and our mission is to really reimagine privacy by design by embedding early detection, enforcement, and audit-ready reporting directly into the development process. So we're basically trying to embed privacy as early as possible in the development cycle in order for companies to implement privacy by design from day one. And so we built this privacy-focused static code scanner that is able to discover third-party SDKs and AI integrations in this new release. It can trace sensitive data flows all the way down to the risky data sinks that could result in privacy violations. And then it allows you to apply precise allow lists. So you can whitelist the types of data that you're allowing to be exposed in logs and files or the third-party SDKs and so forth. And then we provide robust reporting so you can generate records of processing activities, privacy impact assessments, a lot of the privacy reporting that's needed for GDPR compliance or other kind of privacy regulation compliance. And we take the pain out of manually documenting these data flows, and we do it in a very accurate way. So we pre-fill these reports with the detected data flows and the privacy risks so that you're able to achieve privacy compliance at the speed of development. And I'm happy to share more about this new release that we have that focuses specifically on the privacy risks associated with AI applications as well.
You are positioning this as industry's first privacy by design code scanner for AI. Talk a bit about what do you mean by that, and what's the core difference between your approach and the AI security or TLP tools that are already available out there?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So I would break it down by various capabilities that are available out there for AI applications. When it comes to first the discovery part, so as a company wants to figure out what kind of AI integrations have developers embedded in their code. And of course, there's other parts of AI discovery that goes with AI governance because it's not always AI embedded or integrated with custom applications. There's other uses of AI. You can go use Chat GPT and use these chatbots directly, or you could use Copilot and other code assistants in your code. So these are different uses of AI. What we focus on is the AI powered applications, and there's a huge abundance of them and a huge explosion of these types of applications from all types of organizations, small to Fortune 1000 companies. And what is happening is a lot of these organizations want to be able to figure out, okay, our development team has gone off and started integrating with AI to enhance personalization and various AI specific use cases. How can we first discover the types of AI abstractions and frameworks that are being used? And then the next logical question is, okay, how can we track what kind of data is being exposed to these AI services? So for the first part, the discovery part, the tooling that exists today relies on figuring out, the AI usage from the identity providers or the network traffic. And the limitations there is that it will only show you the AI services that have been approved, and it does not really cover the shadow AI, which is a very important risk in organizations. So with AI, you can have direct integrations with OpenAI and Anthropic and Google Gemini, but the vast majority of the AI integrations are happening through various abstractions like LangChain and other AI frameworks that are sometimes hidden and cannot be seen after the fact. So these are embedded in the code and may not be identified by the tooling that exists today. And then the other part is detecting the sensitive data exposure. So a lot of the tooling that exists today relies on runtime tooling, which is looking at the input and output that's going in and out of the AI systems and integrations. But because this is happening after the fact, it's a reactive approach. It often misses organization-specific sensitive data, and it also doesn't necessarily tell you how that sensitive data made it to as an input to the prompt to begin with. So it makes the fix really hard because you're not really addressing the source of the problem. So the way our approach is different is we are a static code scanner. So we're able to use the static code or the source code of the custom applications as the source of truth. And anytime you import an SDK, whether it's an OpenAI or Anthropic SDK, or any of these shadow AI or various abstractions like LangChain, and we have a huge list of AI integrations that we support, we're able to track it. And then, as I mentioned before, we have deep, very proactive, advanced data flow tracing that traces the sensitive data in your code through all kinds of transformations. Because basically, the way that sensitive data logic is created at the code level is that you may have tainted variables. You can have a variable that stores social security number, and then you store it in another variable and then another variable, and we track all of that across file boundaries. Or there might be accidental dumping of user objects inside risky data sinks. And again, we track what's inside that object down to the sensitive data elements that are exposed. And with this kind of approach, we're shifting a lot of the privacy compliance and data leak detection to the earliest parts of the development cycle. We actually have IDE extensions that detect these PII leaks as early as a first line of code is written in your VS Code or IntelliJ IDE. And with this release, we're announcing our Cursor extension all the way to CI integrations that give you pre-merge checks. So right before the code gets pushed to production, you have these checks to make sure that sensitive data is not being exposed in risky mediums that could lead to privacy violations. And so you're addressing these issues even before any code is pushed to production, and drastically reduces the detection and remediation efforts that happen if these issues were detected after the fact.
As you were giving some examples, the fact is enterprises already run a lot of security scanning in their DevSecOps pipeline. How do you fit into that picture? Are you extending their existing tools, or are you doing something fundamentally totally new, which is parallel to what they're already doing?
Right. So we are complementing the existing tools that they have by focusing on a specific problem that is not being addressed in organizations. So in the world of application security, you mentioned AppSec. They're usually the team that actually ends up owning our scanner, because ultimately we are a static code scanner. AppSec runs other code scanners to check for security vulnerabilities like insecure open source libraries or weak encryption and things of that nature. And we basically complement the existing scanners to focus on the sensitive data leaks and the data flow mapping that helps privacy compliance teams kind of achieve their objective and be able to get to compliance much, much faster. And it also helps the data security team from dealing with data leak incidents after the fact. So our biggest deployment right now is with a Fortune 500 healthcare company, and this problem is amplified with scale. So they have 15,000 code repositories, and as you can imagine, with that many repos, it's very hard to keep track of all the sensitive data flows, especially in light of the fast development velocity that's happening in such companies. And so what we help them do is slash the overhead for data mapping by at least 50%. And we complemented the existing privacy platforms that they were using to uncover hidden data flows that were not necessarily tracked, because the existing privacy platforms are essentially scanning data already in production to figure out what is being processed. We, on the other hand, use the code, and we can uncover these shadow AI, shadow third-party integrations and track those data flows to kind of bridge that gap. And also, because it's a static code scanner, we're able to keep up with the development velocity. The other thing that we help them do is slash the number of personally identifiable information and protected health information leaks in their logs. They were experiencing those very frequently, at least 5 to 10 incidents a month, and we brought it down to almost zero. And so we saved, thousands of engineering hours from scrubbing the logs, stopping the ingestion of the logs, working with engineering to figure out where in the code this issue was causing the leak. And so we kind of eliminated all of that. And as a result of that, we helped them save more than $1 million in cost savings.
Just for our audience to better understand, can you walk us through an example of how the scanner actually catches risky data use at the code level?
So the scanner goes through multiple steps in order to figure out if sensitive data is exposed in a risky medium. So step one is the discovery of third-party SDKs and AI integrations. So anytime you import an OpenAI SDK or another third-party SDK that's connecting to Salesforce or Sentry or Datadog, we're keeping track of all these SDKs. Next is we track the sensitive data flows. So this involves using an extensive list of data elements that cover personally identifiable information, protected health information, cardholder data, authentication tokens. So we have a list of more than 150 patterns that cover all the sensitive data elements that are considered sensitive in the eyes of GDPR, HIPAA, PCI, and other regulatory frameworks. So once we identify the use of a data element, whether through like a variable or class or function, we track it down across all the files in the code base. And if that sensitive data flow goes through a transformation, for example, through tainted variables or other kinds of transformations or the accidental dumping of objects, we keep track of that and then we ultimately figure out if it ultimately ended up in a risky data sink. So a data sink could be a function that writes to a log, a function that writes to a file, local storage, a function that sends data to third-party SDKs, or gets embedded in LLM prompts that get essentially processed by AI services. And when we identify those types of sensitive data elements, then we check the allowed lists. So we allow customers to bake in their privacy policies through very precise allow lists that allow them to whitelist the types of data they want to expose in various data sinks. So they could say, we're okay exposing username and email and logs. That's not very sensitive to us. It adheres to our privacy policy. But if any other types of PII, like social security number or medical record number, gets exposed, we want to be alerted. We want to flag it as a violation. And because we're catching this stuff at the code level, the fix becomes very, very easy to implement as opposed to catching it after the fact. Once medical record numbers or social security numbers are already exposed in the logs, or in the case of AI services, are exposed to LLM prompts, by that time it will be essentially too late. You could go back and fix the code, but it's an incident. It becomes a major privacy violation that they have to report and document. And so we're essentially addressing these issues before any code gets pushed to production.
Developers are already under constant pressure to ship fast. How do you avoid adding more friction or slowing them down while still enforcing privacy?
Yeah, no, a great question. So it's the typical kind of struggle between security, privacy, and engineering, and finding the right balance. So, um, and like I said, because we cover every stage of development from IDE extensions in Cursor or VS Code that are highlighting these issues as the developers are writing code, all the way to continuous integration pipeline checks. And so it really depends on the appetite of the corporation, and it's really the security and privacy team that knows which part of the scanning they want to roll out first. And so, for instance, there are corporations that usually start with manual CLI based scans that they run to just figure out what's the backlog. Let's kind of figure out all the sensitive data leaks that already exist, get buy-in from engineering, kind of help them understand why this is important, that these privacy violations become a huge tech debt for engineering because they have to fix it after the fact, which becomes very hard without the right context, without the right kind of level of detail. And so once they kind of are they're on board, then you roll out like CI integration as pre-merge checks before you get pushed to production, and then finally developers can embed that directly into the IDE workflow itself. And so it is a journey, but ultimately, there is no debate around catching issues early is much better for even for from an engineering velocity than catching it in production and asking engineering to fix it after the fact, because that is actually a lot more time consuming, because after you push to production, going back and fixing that issue can impact the dependencies, can impact uh, the various features that they just shipped, and they have to do a lot of like retroactive testing. Whereas if you catch it early on, you're able to fix it on the fly before any of that has any serious impact on the code.
Now, let's talk about another problem in this space, which is shadow AI. It has become a big concern inside large companies. First of all, for those who may not fully be aware, how would you define shadow AI, and how does your scanner address it compared to more policy driven governance approaches out there?
Yeah, so when it comes to shadow AI, as I mentioned before, the existing tools that are discovering not just AI services, but even third-party services are essentially relying on either identity providers like Okta, where they look at like registered apps and see what kind of sessions and logins are going to that application, or it could rely on network traffic. So they're inspecting the network traffic, looking at the types of applications that may be used. And the main disadvantage there is that you're looking when you're catching these things after the fact, after they've been registered in your identity provider, or after active sessions and transactions are happening in your network traffic, you're basically limiting yourself to already approved or already in use AI services, and you're not necessarily catching the shadow AI services that rely on hidden abstractions. Like, for example, if you're using LangChain or open source frameworks or various agents, those may not necessarily be caught at that level. And even if they're caught, they're kind of caught after the fact, after they've already been in use. So the main advantage of our approach is we catch these things at the code level, and you have, or the organizations have the option to really stop the usage or be able to apply their privacy and security policies before any code gets pushed to production, before any AI services actually get used, because they're able to audit the types of data that are this being sent. They also need to make sure, for example, if a privacy review happened, with privacy reviews, you need to establish legal basis for processing the data. And if you don't have legal basis, you can get fined. There's been examples in Europe where, companies got, massive fines just because they were not able to establish the proper legal process or get user consent for using certain types of data. So it has serious repercussions, and being able to catch these things earlier in the process is much better than catching it after the fact and dealing with that privacy violation, after you kind of came to know about it after the fact.
Since we are talking about privacy and regulations, in contrast to Europe, US is a bit different. Here, without a federal privacy law, companies are kind of navigating consumer pressure, lawsuits, and state rules, while Europe has clear regulations, which, while fines may be higher, but at least there is a very good clarity. Companies know what they can or cannot do. How is that difference shaping how your customer think about AI data handling?
Right, right. Yeah, you're 100% right. So in Europe, there's GDPR, which is, the privacy regulation that's instated across all European countries. It's very active. It's been, fining, violators with very, very heavy fines. There was a lot of examples, not just for the big companies like OpenAI in Italy was fined, but it's also like the other kind of companies like Clearview AI that processed, biometrics and facial recognition. There was also Replica, ChatGPT in Italy that was also heavily fined. And so over there, it's really like the fear of GDPR that's driving the proactive compliance. In the US, it's a bit more scattered, like you said, because there isn't a federally mandated regulation at the country level, but there's state laws, like you mentioned, California being the most prominent one with CCPA. Other states have their own regulations. There have been court rulings and litigation around specific violations, but it's happening at the state level. But what we're seeing is actually that there's like a huge explosion of AI apps driven by startups that are catering their whole business around AI. So you have like AI for legal and AI for healthcare and AI for finance. And it's really the consumers that are applying the pressure on such companies to ask them to be very transparent about their data handling practices. So the pressure is a little different in the US in the sense that it's in my personal opinion, stemming from the actual consumers and less so from the regulators. And so in those situations, it's the companies trying to be very transparent about their data handling practices, especially when it comes to AI, because there's still a lot of excitement and fear from the day-to-day consumers around AI, and so they want to be over transparent with them about what kind of data is being handled, and whether or not like that data is being trained by AI, how long is it retained, etc., etc. So that's what's driving a lot of the companies here in the US to be on top of their data flow mapping and privacy reporting.
Since we are talking about privacy and regulations, in contrast to Europe, US is a bit different. Here, without a federal privacy law, companies are kind of navigating consumer pressure, lawsuits, and state rules, while Europe has clear regulations, which, while fines may be higher, but at least there is a very good clarity. Companies know what they can or cannot do. How is that difference shaping how your customer think about AI data handling?
In terms of privacy being a competitive edge, I definitely see it that way, especially for the AI powered services that companies are now providing. So as I mentioned before, consumers, and even though you may not have the same opinion as mine, but consumers in general are excited about AI, but also have a great amount of fear around AI. So anything that touches AI in any shape or form is going to raise questions by the actual users and the consumers. If you look at the main providers, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google Gemini, you'll actually notice that in their enterprise tiers, they have 0-day retention, which means their data is not going to be stored for any day. And then for the enterprise tiers, they basically say that the data collected is not going to be used for training. But that doesn't apply for the lower tiers. And on top of that, there's going to be litigation happening, lawsuits. For example, New York Times versus OpenAI, that lawsuit around copyright infringement. There was a request made by the New York Times to say, for the data related to this lawsuit, we want it to be retained for a much longer period of time. And so when that happens, this raises more questions that, okay, we see the official policies by these AI providers, but it's still a really big black box for like the average day consumers who are not really knowing, because it's this new shiny thing and they don't know what's going to happen to their data once it lands in that AI service. So it is those companies that are building AI powered apps, it is absolutely in their best interest to be extremely transparent about their data handling practices. What is exactly going to AI? What is it anonymized? Can it be tied back to that person or not? How long is it going to be stored there, etc., etc., right? That's on the one hand. And so the companies that are being very forthcoming and transparent about that are going to have a competitive edge. And then the other part of your question, as SaaS companies embed AI into their offering, and it's happening at a very, very fast pace already. You're seeing companies left and right kind of repositioning themselves as AI companies. And so for us, that's actually a really good thing, because that means that their AI becomes such a core construct of their offering, that whichever company is delivering that service is going to have to document their data flows, have to have policies around what kind of processors and sub-processors that their SaaS services are using, including those AI services. And those AI services are usually the ones that get more scrutiny. There's been a long debate around like third-party risk and what data you're sending to monitoring platforms and backup platforms and so forth. Now with AI, there's even extra scrutiny. Anytime you send anything to AI, it's being looked on and reviewed by both the consumers and the B2B kind of customers with extra scrutiny, because AI raises a lot of questions around data training, data storage, and so forth. And so for us, this actually is good business for us, because we're helping these companies really document the data flows, identify those privacy risks very, very early on in the development process, so that by the time they need to actually roll out the audit-ready reports, we've already generated all of them for them in a very continuous manner. Yeah.
After listening to Amjad, it's clear that privacy by design isn't just a nice to have, it's becoming essential for how enterprises build AI responsibly. Amjad, thank you so much for not only developing these technologies, but also joining me and share your insight with our audience. I really appreciate your time today, and I look forward to chatting with you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swapna. Appreciate it.
And for those watching, if your company is tackling problems in AI security, privacy, or infrastructure space, we'd love to hear your story as well. We'd love to invite you on the show. So please don't hesitate. Please reach out to our team, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and stay tuned for more conversations. Thank you.